Are you like us? Tired of all the politically correct horseshit on podcasts and in the media? Need a podcast that's funny, smart, and gassy? It's not politically correct. It's just correct. This is the Carolina Underground. Throw that middle finger in the air. Raise them up. Because it's time to get loud, proud, and in your face. Generation X. Generation X. The best generation of all time meets the grit of the South. It's about everything and nothing at all. From current events to woolly boogers to movies to politics. Loud, brash, funny, and never, and I do mean never, predictable. The Carolina Underground with Mark and Mike.
Yo, 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 it's the Carolina Underground, and we're back again, just like a bad freaking penny, boys and girls. And I'm coming to you live from the replica Bat Cave with my partner in high crimes and misdemeanors, hidden in the depths of the secret services in the Sparkleberry.
You know, you do so, it amazes me. You come up with some different stuff, and tonight was special.
Well, you know, I've always been told I was special.
Yep. I've been told the same thing.
I don't know what they meant by that. And I'm not exactly sure they meant it as a compliment.
I understand that too. I've felt the same way. Actually, the best left-handed compliment I ever received that I'm still proud of to this day was that I was a veritable wealth of useless information.
Well, you know, I have been told that a time or two myself.
Yeah.
And my response to that person that told me that, and I'm not going to say who said it because I don't want to embarrass them because I'm not a Twitter troll. But I said, but you're the dumbass that keeps coming around and keeps calling me.
So are you sure you wanted to poke that bear this early into the evening?
Beep, 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 poke, 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 poke.
Oh, no. Well, I think I can make it through this one without warming up the General Lee too.
Well, it's full up with gas. I mean, last episode, I don't even think we cranked the motor over.
I know it. I was kind of shocked at that.
I was too.
Because
the episode before, I think we kept OPEC in business.
I understand. Yep. So again, as I mentioned previously, I asked a question on Twitter.
Okay.
Or X, I guess it's called.
Yeah, I think all vestiges.
Like the name X.
Well, I think all vestiges of Twitter are now officially gone. I think like they own all the copyrights and stuff now to X to make it X. So I think Twitter officially is dead.
Yeah, but I mean, again, X just doesn't have, I mean, you know, it's like
when I'm looking for X's, I'm looking for a couple more with it. And what's got me all miscombobulated is all this. You got to give them picture ID and all this stuff, and it's like, well, how are you supposed to do that?
Well, take a picture.
Well, I ain't doing that. That sounds like an invasion of my privacy.
Well, now, and we were just talking about that with your Alexa. Okay, again, and it's one of the things that just amazes.
Now, please don't say that name. You know she's got sensitive ears.
But again, so you know, back when you and I were younger,
in the good old days,
everybody, in the good old days, before electronics completely dominated everybody's life. People were concerned about having their phone tapped or having their, or having a wiretap in their house or something like that.
Well, and that's because we knew that the government was a bunch of rascals back then.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But they hadn't shown their true colors quite yet, I don't know.
Well, I think they had shown their true colors. It just wasn't as predominantly known and had not been as well documented at that time.
Well, the power was still distributed, I think, over a broader range of people
Right.
than what it is now.
Well, and because that was still in the era of when our boys are laying in the water, and then they escalated the Vietnam War with the Gulf of
Right.
Tonkin, and it never happened. Bunch of
Exactly.
lying heifers. You
But
see
yeah,
that? I said the H word and didn't say the F word.
no, I know I'm quite proud of you. But
And,
again,
and I've even had 4 cups of triple goat pecker coffee.
well, there you go. But the you know the point being, people now pay good money to put surveillance devices in their pocket and in their house. And not only that, the darn things aggravate the fool out of you because they have a habit of running their mouth when you don't want them to. So I mean, again,
Amen
we
to that.
spend so much money on things that drive us absolutely crazy. I mean, what happened to having enough common sense to not buy something simply, but to annoy the living daylights out of you?
Well, let me tell you what I did today.
What did you did today, my friend?
Well, I ain't gone to a store and I don't know when. Okay, I get the groceries delivered. I don't want to see no people. I watch them on the camera to make sure they ain't doing nothing untold to my vittles. I leave them
Mm.
setting, and I wait for them to get out of the driveway, and the gate shuts before I go up and get the stuff because I don't want them to see me. I mean, it's hard
Well,
to
should I
keep
start?
my secret identity safe.
Well, I
Sorry.
understand now. I mean, I'm wondering, I mean, how far have you gone on the transformation into Howard Hughes? Are you peeing in jars yet?
No, I got a
Oh,
whole dugout back.
okay. All right. I'm just checking.
I'm
If
just
you
using
are
the
you
same old
saving your
outhouse
fingernail
we've been
clippers?
using the whole time.
Ah, yes. That is one of my favorite poems. The torture of that icy seat could make a Spartan sob.
But I go to Velma's, my little 75-year-old sweetheart.
Yep.
We go every weekend, and this time we get up there, and we have supper every week. We have supper on Saturdays and Sundays there, and
Hmm.
this time it was a catastrophe and a traumification waiting to happen.
A catastrophe, in the famous words of Jimmy Durante.
Well, I mean, it was horrible.
All right.
She
What happened?
come in. We had a wonderful stew beef with taters and carrots, and
Yeah.
we had rice, and when we had some cauliflower salad. And as we were eating that, she lets loose that we ain't got no dessert.
Oh, my heavens.
Well, I said, well, by God, hold my beer. So I ordered 4.5 gallons cherry amaretto something ice cream and had it delivered in 45 minutes or less from the Walmart.
From the Walmart. There you
Yeah.
go.
And
Wonderful.
unfortunately, I have also had to order some spray foam, and you know what that's going to be in reference to. I have tried to coexist with them, but they attack Flossie Dog,
Oh, dear.
and so they have to go.
Ah, the bees, huh?
Yes. But they didn't
Yeah.
sting her, but they were just, one of them got in her mouth, and it scared her, and now she don't want to go outside.
Yep. No, I understand. Yeah. They
I've,
get grumpy when the nectar's not flowing, and they will go out of their way not to sting you, but they will shoo you out. They will shoo you away if they think you're any kind of danger.
well, they got one was on her butt, and she was trying to get it off, and then one got in her mouth, and then I just said, you know what? I told y'all I would leave y'all alone if y'all left me alone and left Flossie alone, and y'all ain't holding up your end of the deal. The
Yeah.
last time I checked, y'all ain't paying rent.
Hmm.
So y'all either going to have to get out or you're going to get killed. That's just the way. And I don't want to kill bees. I told you before I didn't want to kill them.
Well, the truth of the matter, from what I've heard, is that the bee population has rebounded back from near, from the desperate
Oh, well,
level it
so
was.
I'm not going to feel so bad for killing them then.
No, but the sad thing is, I mean, they're still going to be dying in large quantities because of being poisoned from the pesticides that they put on the plants, for the GMOs and
Right.
stuff like that.
And I will say this, I may give them another chance because we were outside at a time that we normally are not outside.
Well, yeah, most of the time, I mean, again, yeah, I mean, good luck with it. I understand. I am a beekeeper. I get it. They, this time of year, and in the fall they get worse, because there's no nectar flowing, and so they're in,
Well, if I put
they
out some
become
sugar water, would
survival
that
ants.
help them?
No,
Okay.
no, I mean, again, it's the time of year because their systems tell them there's no additional food out there.
Oh.
And so I mean, again, they are significantly better attuned to the environment than we are as human beings because they haven't spent their entire existence, all 38 to 45 days of it, trying to turn their environment
Is
into
that all
something
they
new.
live?
Yeah, they only live about they only well, there's summer bees and there's winter bees. Okay, so summer bees live about a month, a little over a month.
Huh, I didn't know that.
I think it's about. I mean, I'd have to. It's one of those things. I knew it at one point,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not important enough. It doesn't really impact. It's an interesting fact, but it doesn't really impact the hive per se. At
Well,
least I haven't
because
found a
they
way to
keep
do it.
they repopulate fast enough that
Oh yeah,
it's not a
oh yeah.
problem.
And I mean, again, if unless you've got an old queen, but they'll actually take care of that too. I mean, folks do change out the queens and they'll buy queens and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They do it for their own
Well,
reasons.
like I told you when we found out about this, and I had mentioned to you the first time, and this has absolutely nothing to do with what we were planning on talking about tonight.
Right.
But I had put
When does anything ever have anything to do with what we planned to talk
Oh,
about?
that's true.
I'm
But
sorry.
I mean, I had put, I had reached out to the Beekeeper Association of the county that I live in.
Right.
Nobody ever bothered to get back in touch with me.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I
I
hate
mean,
that because I
again,
really didn't want to kill them. And I mean, I figured if somebody knew what they were doing, they probably could get them out. But, as you and I spoke, where they are, to get to the queen, you're going to have to go through about 7 inches of concrete.
yeah, that is a bit of a conundrum. I mean, again, if you can get your hands on the queen, the bees will follow her, but you got to be able to get your hands on the queen, and so yeah. Anyway, blah blah blah. We've talked
So
about that as
we
much as
was
we.
originally going to talk about some woolly booger stuff this episode, and I still probably going to bring it up because I have had the opportunity. I have been invited somewhere that I ain't real keen to go visit because I think it is probably one of the main places to where you can truly document paranormal activity.
Hates.
Haints and haunts, that's right.
Yep.
And that is Lake Lanier.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
500 people have died since its formation.
Yep.
And 200 of those are between 94 and 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of, there ain't no telling how many towns and graveyards and stuff like that's beneath that lake.
Well, yeah, and from what I understand, there was a Native American ritualistic.
There was, because it was
site.
actually part of the Cherokee Nation before
Yep.
it was everything else. So it's one of those places. I've gone down there before, and it's no matter, I mean, you get out of the car and it's like something right here just doesn't feel right.
Well, and again, that was one of the things. I am rewatching the Ancient Apocalypse series by Graham Hancock, and one of the things that he, that he discusses is all of the holy sites, all of these like the pyramids
Hmm.
and everything like that, they're all built, almost all of them have something to do. I mean, there is a definite palpable feeling that you get in those areas that there is something special about this site. And
Right.
again, our ancestors didn't have anywhere near the kind of distractions that we have today. And I know you've walked into places where the hair on the back of your neck is stood up.
Hey, unfortunately, that has happened a few times, and unlike most people,
Mhm.
I pay attention and turn around and walk out.
No, no, I understand. But again, so there are sites on this earth that have a different feel to them for whatever reason. It may be magnetism. It may be the way that the light is refracted off of, mica and the rocks. Who knows? I don't know. And again, I've watched a little bit of Skinwalker Ranch here recently. That's gotten right interesting since they've been doing the investigation on that dome-shaped mass that they've
Hmm.
discovered with
Well,
LiDAR.
and I think when you look at the lidar thing, they said the way it is dispersed is what you would think of if it was a debris field from a
Right.
crash.
So, and again, there
So
are
what's crashing there that has the same molecular and elements and stuff in the material in the metals that we put on space shuttles and spacecraft today?
right. Well, again, and I was talking to my beloved about the whole thing
Yes, we
because
were. That's so nice of you to to refer to me like that.
my sweetheart. Okay,
All right.
so but there are so many out of place artifacts. Well, and again, the problem. Well, so here's what started the conversation of why we started. Well, I'm rewatching it with her.
Mm-hmm.
Gobekli Tepe.
Right.
Okay, they have gone up there and poured a bunch of concrete and asphalt, and I'm not sure if it's completed yet, but the plan is to build viewing platforms for tourism over the top of this stuff. Well, if you look at the plans, the supports for this are going to go into areas that have not yet been excavated and actually destroy some of the excavations that have been done.
Well, it seems like
And
you
they
wouldn't want to
are
destroy
the
any
oldest
of it.
archaeological find of a civilization on the planet. Yes, I actually agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, but again, they're no longer allowing excavations of the site beyond the area that has been excavated. And with, again, I'm only on episode 2 of this right now in a great series, but they were talking about, again, there's, and his name just went out of my head. The sleeping visionary. Um, my goodness, it'll come to me in a minute. Um, predicted that Atlantis was going to be found.
Mm-hmm.
Predicted that he would go into hypnosis. And Edgar Casey. Edgar
Okay.
Casey. My goodness, I could not remember it. Predicted that there were hidden rooms in the Sphinx and underneath the Sphinx that contained information, stuff like that. Well, they were talking about Chichula
Okay.
and in Mexico, and another one of the large pyramid complexes in Mexico. And if you go into those structures and you go into the catacombs underneath them, they have hidden rooms and they have passageways. And the Mexicans, the structures in Central America, um, they were all made out of mud bricks, so there's not a big mystery about how they managed to build them, and not even necessarily that big of a mystery, not like the pyramids or
Mm-hmm.
or Göbekli Tepe or Gunung Padang and all of those places. The architecture is very similar. The rooms are very similar from what it looked like to me, and so are they in the pyramid. But again, the original site was built over a sacred spring, just like most of these sites were. Now, we're not sure about the Egyptian pyramids, but we do know that a tributary of the Nile
Used to
used
run,
to
right,
go there.
right.
Yeah. So, but at any rate, but there are rooms, and just like in Gunung Padang, just like in Egypt, just like there are rooms that they know are there, and they refuse to allow anyone to go in there, excavate them, and research them under any circumstances. Now, I understand there
Well,
are
what is the
about
reasoning that they
safety.
give in not letting people do research there?
They just don't. For example, with Göbekli Tepe, the World Economic Forum is in charge of that,
Now,
and
why? Now, that's kind of question. Why would the World Economic Forum be in charge of a historic site?
exactly, why are they? Well, and they're not directly in charge of it. They have a company, a very wealthy company, the one that is planning to, sell tickets for the tourist industry to go there and see it. And I'm sure that plays a huge part of it. But I think that, I mean, again, when I was down in Costa Rica looking at the stones, the Costa Rican stones,
Mm-hmm.
they've managed to find a way where they can continue their archaeological work and allow the public to view the site and fund the site and all of that stuff.
Uh huh.
But again, why? Why? I mean, again, there's the obvious we could make a lot of money off of this answer that drives anything that has to do with the financial sector. But I just can't help but feel like there's a more sinister reason that we aren't allowing. And again, of course, the archaeological community is turned on its head because if you look at these monuments and whatnot on their face, like Heliopolis, where some of the stones are 90 tons, and we're supposed to believe that a bunch of people that hadn't even invented the wheel can haul around 90-ton stones with impunity. It's
It's kind
anyway,
of baffling, actually.
it is baffling. And then of course they also tell you that these same people that were completely hunter gatherers and were completely ignorant of everything by themselves suddenly developed architecture, and all of this stuff only happened 4 to 6 thousand years ago. Meanwhile, the dates on Ganam Padang, on Göbekli Tepe, and all of these other many of these other sites reach back to more than 12,500 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, during the last ice age. And then of course if you look at what the world and the world landmass looked like during the last ice age,
The Gulf
there's
of
a lot of
Mexico wasn't
places.
even there.
Yeah, absolutely, there's a whole lot of places that are wet now that weren't wet during the
Right.
last ice age, and a lot of dry places that didn't exist. Because the weight of the ice, the earth has a crust, and below that crust is a molten liquid. It happens to be molten metal and stone, but it's still a liquid. So if you mash on a balloon and parts of it that are, anyway, blah blah blah. But again, I have to feel like it's a little bit more sinister, because at the very least it's like the whole game of politics. It's a great big game of king of the hill, the people that have built their power
Mm-hmm.
base off of being the archaeological experts that said, oh well, 6,000 years ago we were all hunter gatherers, and boom, 4,000 years ago we decided to plant crops and stopped wandering around chasing animals and domesticated everything. And, the rest is, of course, history. Then we suddenly decided to start writing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And there's nothing that explains the Ayurvedic writings and how those came to be from nomadic peoples, because I believe they're more than 6,000 years old and stuff like that. So, but anyway, they don't want to lose their power. They don't want to lose their prestige. They don't want to lose their position. And so they claim, just like all of the mRNA folks, you're a science, and the climate folks, that you're a science denier if you have an opinion, which leads me back to the where you poked the bear earlier about the Twitter trolls. And the thing that just
You mean
utterly
X
upset,
trolls?
well, what are you supposed to call it? Okay, so with Twitter, you had a tweet. What do you have with an X? What is an X message? An eh?
No,
Or
that's Canadian.
oh, okay. So I guess it would be an eh troll or an X troll, whatever. Anyway, but it
The
amazes
people
me.
that are in our
Aggressively
generation,
ignorant.
yeah, but in our generation, you wouldn't do that because you had to show your face sooner or later, and you
Oh,
had to
absolutely.
present your
Yeah,
butt and be able to defend
yeah.
yourself. But nowadays, when you can hide behind a keyboard and hide behind a pseudonym, and you can put out
Mhm.
whatever you want with impunity, whether it's the truth or not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, so again, the Twitter trolls or X trolls, whatever, were getting all over my case because I had the temerity to ask a question. And they said, well, you can go check it out for yourself and all this kind of stuff. And it's like,
Well, if I
I'm
wanted to
asking a
check it
question.
out for myself, I wouldn't ask the dad blame question, you
Well,
moron.
exactly, exactly. And I can't remember what it was, but I mean, one of them did act like he might have had one or two brain cells functioning, but the other one was a
That
complete
means it was
blithering idiot.
probably AI.
Probably was, yeah. But again, it's one of those where they're aggressive in their ignorance. It's like the climate change people. Okay. I had to have a discussion, and this was actually in person, because no, I agree, and I grew up with the comment, always remember not to let your alligator mouth overload your hummingbird
Hummingbird butt.
behind.
Except
So
I think the main call to action, or the main thing for Generation X was
uh
F around and find out.
oh, absolutely, 100%, same thing. But I had to set someone straight, because they said, well, you don't. Uh, my all right. I've lost track of my thought at the moment. But
You were talking
oh,
about
the
your
climate change
climate
person.
change,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah, we had to mute a sneeze there, folks. I apologize. But yeah, so the climate person, or the person that I had to set straight, said, well, you don't believe in climate change. I said, oh, no, 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 no. That is completely wrong. I firmly believe that climate change exists. It
Well, it
happens
has
all the
to.
time.
Well, I mean, it would
It
have to.
No, it does. And it is driven by this great big yellow ball that shows up. And between that great yellow ball that shows up in the sun, or excuse me, shows up in the morning and goes down in the evenings, and the
Mm-hmm.
tilt of the earth, that's what causes climate change. That and the currents of the oceans and all of that stuff, it all works together. It is a system where we get heat, we are heated unevenly,
Mm-hmm.
and the planet wants to reach a stasis, and so that's how we get weather. I am 100% behind that. What I do not agree with is that human beings have a blessed thing to do with that. Well, with much of that climate change. I do believe that deforestation and the stuff that we're doing to the oceans, I do believe that there's a fair amount of interaction with that. But I think the bigger problems that we have than the change in climate is the overfishing of the oceans and
Hmm.
all of these containers that are spilling off of container ships and floating around and ruining the habitat of
And
whales,
the garbage patch that's
the
what,
garbage
300
bags.
square
Yeah,
miles or whatever it is.
right, right, right. All of that I think has a greater impact. And again, everybody, well, I mean, that we hear people talking about all these chemicals. This is a closed system, folks. All of the chemicals come from the earth. Now we might concentrate them, we might do stuff with them, and yes, they if you concentrate arsenic in a large enough or cyanide in a large enough amount, it's deadly to
Right.
humans. But you got
So
arsenic
so
in.
is water in a exorbitant amount.
Well, yeah, water is the universal solvent. Water erodes metal over time. Actually, it doesn't take that much of a time, and rusts and all of that stuff. So it's the short-sightedness. I remember I was watching something where Jordan Peterson made the comment about intellectuals. Okay, and the problem with intellectuals is hubris, really. Reaching a point where you think that you are so smart that you're just smarter than everybody else.
Right.
And again, that was one of the things I was thinking when I was watching the bit about Cholula. Okay, so these were very old sites, and the oldest sites in in Latin America, the Mexican area where they find all these things, had some amazing architecture and engineering that went into them, and they had aqueducts that directed the water. And this is supposed. I mean, these were that translated the water from the top of the mountain down to the fields to
Hmm.
help the growing season and things of that nature. And they were very precisely laid out. Now, I'm not, so the point of the matter is we look back on our ancestors and we think, oh, they were just ignorant savages. But I mean, we've got smart people and we've got ignorant savages today. And most of those
I
ignorant
think the
savages are
count of
border
smart
trolls.
people is declining compared to what it
Well,
used to be.
and again, here is one of the things that was done by industry that directly affected the level of intelligence of the human population and the health of the human population. And we talked about that before, and that was leaded gasoline.
Hmm.
Okay. And again, that was
And
done
fluoride
for
in the
profit,
water.
and lead based paint, et cetera, et cetera. How about asbestos? Okay. And the thing about all of these is that the folks that created them at the time knew that a lot of the dangers that in what they were creating.
Hmm.
Okay, but they were making money off of it, so it's okay
Well,
to give that to the masses.
that's always the bottom line. If it makes money, then
Well, if it
it
makes
can't be
money for
bad.
some, if it
Right.
makes money
For the right people. Right.
for the right people,
And then lines the pockets of the politicians.
absolutely, and therein lies the problem. And so, what irks my last nerve is these people that get their knickers so severely knotted when somebody has the temerity to ask a question about the corruption. And of course, they want to fly to the aid of the person who is their oppressor,
Hmm.
which goes back to the wolf would not be nearly as powerful if he didn't have accomplices amongst the sheep.
Right.
So, at any rate, I'm sorry. I asked you if you wanted to poke that bear.
Well, I did. I mean, I was going to give you a soapbox because you really didn't jump on one last week. So
Yeah,
I
that's
wanted
true.
I wanted you to at least be able to see over the steering wheel.
Yep, yep. No, I got you. I got you. Well, I can see over the steering wheel, but it's so fascinating to me. The Antikythera mechanism
Mm-hmm.
and the London hammer and the I forget what they call the wedge. But that wedge, that aluminum wedge they found in Italy, that somebody in prehistory was making aluminum.
Right.
Okay, well, I mean, I think what we discovered how to make aluminum out of out of bauxite in what, the 1830s or
Oh,
something like that,
thought it would have been later
or
than that.
1930s.
I
I don't
figured it'd be in the
remember.
1930s.
I think it was in the 1930s that we discovered how to make aluminum. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Again, that's one of those things that it's an interesting factoid, but not something that's necessary on my day-to-day survival.
I like it. Whenever they invented ice cream,
There you go. Absolutely.
I like ice cream.
Ice cream is good stuff, as is gelato.
Yeah,
But,
that's Italian.
there you go.
I
That's
don't
that
hold for
Italian,
them
Italian
European
stuff.
people.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I've already kicked that soapbox over, and now unless we want to talk, well, let's get back to woolly boogers. So Lake Lanier,
Lake Lanier.
Lake
Well,
Lanier.
this has. Well, you mean you have? There's supposedly the Lady of the Lake. A lot of people say it's not haunted, but it's just there are a lot of weird things that just go on down there.
Well, yeah, and folks, I mean, I mean, there are scientific explanations for some of it, absolutely. And I'm not saying that there's not scientific explanations for anything. I've talked about before, when you sit down and you think about the spectrum, the electromagnetic spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and what a tiny amount of that electromagnetic spectrum we as human beings are able to perceive. Same thing with the audible spectrum. We are only perceiving a tiny amount. And again, if you listen to what's going on in the ocean versus what's going on up here in the air, there's an even smaller fraction of what is going on around us that we're perceiving.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can we hope to be able to truly understand? I mean, when we're looking at a computer readout or a device that puts a squiggly line on something, how in the world can we hope to? Well, we're not designed to be able to perceive it the way it is meant, in my opinion, by our divine creator for us to perceive it.
Well, and we have an innate arrogance to that seems to
Absolutely.
drive us to believe that we are the end all be all and
Mhm.
that we know all.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's kind of the thing. Again, we look back at our ancestors and think that they were poor, ignorant slobs.
Right.
Okay, because they didn't know how. I mean, we look at our own. I mean, I remember looking at my grandparents who could not, for the life of them, set the time on, the clock on a VCR, and I remember laughing about that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? My grandparents grew up before electricity. And
God bless them, because I
before,
don't see
yeah,
how they live without air conditioning.
yeah, and again, and both of my grandparents' houses stayed very pleasant with nothing in, even up into the dog days of summer, stayed pleasant because of the way they built the Blumman house,
Mm-hmm.
because of the architecture.
And the way
And
they put trees around it to block the morning and
yep,
afternoon sun.
absolutely. And all of that stuff, they knew that. I mean, again, and they had my grandparents on my mother's side did not even have an ice box. So they kept their food from spoiling by running it down a rope in a box that my great great grandfather built,
Mm-hmm.
and they would lower that box down into a dried up well because it was cool down there. You get
Right.
down there below the
Well, you're
permafrost,
using
things get hot.
geothermal.
Geothermal cooling.
Right.
And how about their usage of solar energy for a solar clothes dryer?
Mm-hmm.
You and I would call that a clothesline.
Right.
Okay. So, and they
And
used
wind
all of
powered.
this stuff. And wind power, absolutely. They used all of this stuff. They built this stuff, and with paper and pencil and a slide rule, put a man on the moon. Okay. That
Well,
is, of
we
course,
may get some
provided the
backlash from
flat
that.
earthers. Only from the flat earthers. So
Well, I
it's
do. Speaking of that, and that there was some news out um, within the last couple of days, and they were talking about a breakthrough that they think is going to happen in renewable energy soon, and it was talking about a liquid battery, and
well,
that
there's plenty of liquid
well,
batteries.
this
Which
one
what
is
are they?
this is a new one, and
They talking about
it's
maybe the sulfur salt
well,
batteries or
it's a team that's from Stanford that
uh-huh.
liquid organic hydrogen carriers can serve as batteries for long-term renewable energy storage.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I don't think I've heard about that one.
Well, this was an article that had just come out from mine and your favorite magazine, Popular Mechanics, because we're smart
Hmm.
and most people are not. Because we don't drink Kool-Aid.
Okay.
I drank the new Fruit Splash Ginger Ale from Canada Dry.
All right, sir.
It's pretty good. But
Well,
it came
all right.
out. They were talking about it. Came out earlier late last week, about the 19th or so. But they
Well,
were
but
talking
and
about how
again,
that could actually be the breakthrough that we need to solve a lot of the problems and having so much strain on the um, energy grid.
well, but here's the thing. All right, the big problem with the energy grid, the big problem with the energy grid is them figuring out how they can maximize their profits off of the energy grid. I see absolutely nothing wrong with utilizing renewable energy. Okay. But if you do it yourself, okay, then you will have officials and folks getting all over you. I mean, there was a fella down off of, I think it was Lake Marion
Mm-hmm.
in South Carolina, who had the temerity to put his own private windmill up. And the city, I think it was, it may have been the county, I'm not exactly sure, but at any rate, somebody, the government came in there and forced him to take it down. All right, so they don't want you to produce your own energy. Now, you know about earth batteries, right?
Right.
Okay, and you know about the fact that if you run a conductor up about 300 feet above the ground, you will get amperage, not much, but if you had enough of them and you coat the receptors with graphene, it actually produces. I mean, it's a Coriolis motor, I believe, is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
But so you got those, and then if you live anywhere near moving water, you can put electrodes in moving water, and that'll generate current. Okay, so I have no problem, no qualms, no compunctions against utilizing the natural electricity that we have around us and using nature, using geothermal energy, using the energy of the sun. Okay, but you need to have some common sense
Right.
and realize that solar panels are you never get the energy out of the solar panels that you put into them to create them. Now they're getting better. They really are. Okay, and I read an article the other day about new or some technology that's been developed in liquid solar energy cells instead of the silica based
Mm-hmm.
energy cells, and it's promising and it's helpful and there's good stuff, but we also completely ignore things like the solar thermal, which is much more efficient. So you can use that even in the wintertime to heat your hot water.
Right.
And they're inexpensive to make. So let's just use some common sense. And again, Nikola Tesla created an electric car back in the 1930s that outperforms a lot of the electric cars on the market today, or outperformed. I don't think it's available anywhere anymore. Now, the point is, it's essentially an electric car is a great big golf cart.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense if you're in a town or something like that to putter around in a golf cart. It makes a lot of sense. What doesn't make sense is forcing people in Montana, where it's 50 miles to go to town,
And 50 degrees below zero.
in 50 degrees below zero. And if it gets too hot, the batteries don't perform well. If it gets too cold, the batteries don't perform well. It just makes no sense. And then to use fear, uncertainty, and discontent, screaming at people. I mean, again, remember back in the 70s, we were supposed to have another ice age. That's what Leonard Nimoy told me when I was watching In Search of.
Well, I'm ready. It's hot.
Well, and the thing of, that was another thing. Somehow that ice age was supposed to make Florida sink. Everybody says Florida's going to sink no matter what. Either the polar ice caps melting are going to make Florida sink.
Well, they've been kept promising that California is going to crack and fall off because of the San Andreas fault, but that ain't happened yet either.
Yeah, and again, that they lied to us about that because it's the wrong kind of fault for it to separate. That's one. I forget if one of them is a subduction fault, and I can't remember what the other one is. But in one of them, the plates are getting pushed together, so one is, and that's the subduction, I think. So Andreas is a subduction fault, so it's pushing California into Nevada and New Mexico.
Well, they ain't gonna like that.
Yeah, I reckon not. But it makes the Rocky Mountains higher, and that improves skiing.
But there is one thing, just one takeaway from this episode as we're going to come to an end tonight.
Oh, my goodness.
And this is for everybody out there.
Don't let me stand on a soapbox.
No. Sometimes it's entertaining. But the main moral of the stories and the talking tonight is just don't be stupid.
Yep. Keep your eyes open.
Think
keep
for
yours
yourself.
Open.
Don't believe anything that anybody tells you unless you can verify it with at least 3 or 4 sources. And if they can't give you the 3 or 4 sources that they use, they're lying.
Well, that's true. Well, yeah, have a little bit of common sense.
That's right.
And think is the best thing. My goodness. And again, we don't have to fight each other over stuff. We can find a way to get along if we will recognize that most of what you're hearing, if you're hearing it off of the mainstream media,
it's a lie.
It's a lie. It is designed to tell you to do something that the people who are paying, again, newscasters are not newscasters.
Nope.
They're actors that are paid to read a script. There's no journalists.
And some of them read it as well as Joe Biden reads a teleprompter.
Well, those are the ones on.
And with that,
NBC.
That's the snout to the curly tail and everything in between. And we gone.
Have a good evening.
All right, you crazy bunch of motherfuckers. Wait, can we say mother? Anyway, you've been listening to the Carolina Underground. It isn't politically correct, it's just correct. Our motto is, if you can't go balls deep, don't go at all. Actually, that's not our motto, and I'm sorry, I don't even know what that meant. All right, we gotta go. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, we hope it really pissed you off. Follow us on Twitter at Carolina UNDGRND. Underground, get it? Or drop us an email at Carolina UNDGRND. Get it? At northstate.net. We want to hear from you. Y'all be cool. See you next time on Carolina Underground.